You guys know what time it is, weekly fragrance rotation time, and I got my coffee, so let's get into it. Hey, what's going on? Hunter here and welcome back to my channel where I upload weekly fragrance content, so you already know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below if you also love fragrances, and be sure to follow me over on my Instagram page. But of course, weekly fragrance rotation as always per week, and glad to see all you guys returning. I hope all you had a fantastic week and pulled out some bangers for fragrances. But if you are new to this series, I basically run down what fragrance I wore on each day, how many sprays, the kind of weather, and of course, if that fragrance got any compliments. So let's get right into Sunday. Sunday happened to be in the low 40s and cloudy outside, and I went with a Louis Vuitton and probably the most hyped up freshie from Louis, and that is Imagination. So I haven't actually reached for this for quite some time now, but man, this is a very, very complex freshie, and probably one of the strongest freshies from Louis Vuitton as well. This is literally so good. Now, in the morning, I did go to church, and I have a funny story to tell you guys at church. So the service is basically going about like relationships, things like that, and the pastor was, of course, on stage, and he was talking about like single guys, and then he started talking about cologne, which was so funny because he was basically giving a rundown for single guys to not spray their skin with cologne, rather spray it in the air and walk through it. And there I am in the audience, like almost cringing, guys. And then he all of a sudden said that single guys will always spray a ton of fragrance to try to attract a woman. And there I am in the audience, right? I got all these women by me. I'm wearing 6 sprays of Imagination. And I'm like, oh God. These girls around me probably think like I'm spraying so much fragrance to try to like attract and find a woman myself, which is so embarrassing. But you already know I'm Fragrance Hunter, and I'm going in with 6 sprays of Imagination regardless. Heck, they're lucky I ain't do my usual 10, to be honest with you. You know what I should have done actually? I should have went on stage and showed the pastor how to actually apply a fragrance, because spraying in the air and walking through it, nah, that ain't gonna do it. And then later on in the evening, of course, it was Super Bowl Sunday, which, to be honest with you, was a very boring game. It was just like field goals the entire game, but I did go out to watch it. Got no compliments with Imagination, even though a lot of times this stuff does attract a ton of attention. Heading into Monday was in the mid 40s, but it was sunny outside, and I pulled out a new fragrance from Sospiro, and this is Maraschino. Now, looking at this bottle, what do you expect this to smell like? You probably expect it to smell like cherries, and if so, you would be correct. And obviously the name Maraschino, which I believe is like those kind of like jars of cherries and like kind of a syrup. And that's the exact vibe this gives off, a very like dark, almost like purple cherry. It just comes across so syrupy and a little bit of like this bitter almonds. I would say though, this is a pretty unique cherry-based fragrance. It's nothing like Lost Cherry, which is probably the most popular in that genre. So hats off to Sospiro for creating something unique with this popular note. On that day, I did do 10 sprays of Maraschino. I don't recall doing much on Monday. Got no compliments either, since I wasn't really around many people. And every time Sospiro announces a new fragrance, I always get so hyped. And this one definitely lived up to the hype. If you like those fruity, kind of cherry-based fragrances, this is worth checking out. Tuesday was in the high 30s and also sunny outside. And I pulled out not necessarily a new fragrance, but renamed, and it is Raja Parfums Enigma Parfum Cologne, more known for being Creation E within the United States, but Raja Parfums actually went back to the original name because of trademark reasons. They got the name back in the US. So now you will see Enigma rather than Creation E if you are in the United States. And I've always been a huge fan of Creation E. It's got that fizzy, boozy, tobacco earthiness to it, and this one is obviously the same exact fragrance. And I did go with my usual 10 sprays with Enigma Parfum Cologne. I did get one compliment from a coworker. She just told me that my fragrance smells nice. And then a little bit later on in the day, she asked me how many sprays I did. I told her, she said, yeah, it's not really that strong, which kind of surprised me. I think since this is a brand new bottle, it probably has to mature, of course, because I had a bottle of Creation E, which is around like, I believe 4 years old now, and that stuff is pretty potent. So I think that's the case, since these are just rebottled now and just put into a new Enigma glass. So it probably has to sit a little bit macerate, mature, etc., and become more potent. I don't believe it's been reformulated because it smells the exact same when I tested them side by side. So for any bougie lovers out there, this is a must check out by Raja is Enigma. Wednesday happened to be in the mid-30s and cloudy outside, and I pulled out a fragrance that literally never disappoints every time I reach for it. It is Orientica's exclusive Oud Blue, which is inspired by Parfums de Marly's Layton. But to be honest with you, I think I actually prefer this over Layton, which is mind-blowing. It's literally almost a stronger Layton with an amped up vanilla. These are actually a straight to parfum, so they do wear like in a straight, which is good. And you can find these at a fraction of the price that you can find a Layton for. So I highly recommend checking this out. I actually wear this quite a bit. Did my usual 10 sprays yet again with exclusive Oud Blue. Got a compliment from a coworker. She told me that it smells good, but it kind of smells like everything else I've been wearing. Now, I think she said that because I do work really close to her like all day long. And once you start getting like overwhelmed by fragrances, especially for me, it almost starts to become like a melting pot where everything just kind of blends together and things just start smelling the same and redundant, etc. Even though of course it's not, because if somebody new that's never been around me before I was wearing this, they would probably lose their mind. But somebody that's used to me always smelling good, always wearing something new every single day, it starts to just kind of blend together. Which I guess the day prior with Enigma, that also has a very vanillic base as this one does as well. And it's funny because later on in the day, the same girl said that it actually smells better now. And that's because once it settles, the vanilla in here, like I said, is amped up and smells absolutely heavenly. But that's what I chose to wear for Wednesday, is one that I highly check out, is exclusive Oud Blue. Thursday was in the mid-40s and cloudy outside, and I pulled out one of my favorite Tom Ford private blends, and that is, of course, Oud Wood. Now, who's excited for Oud Wood Parfum launching, I believe, next month, if not already? I cannot wait to get my nose on the parfum flanker of Oud Wood. And it's kind of interesting what Tom Ford is doing. This is the first parfum in the private blend, so I would imagine they'll probably come out with like maybe a tobacco vanille parfum, Tuscan leather parfum, which would be very exciting. However, back to Oud Wood, this was the first fragrance that got me into the note of oud. Before trying this one, I had no idea what oud was. I had no idea what it smelled like, and that was around 7 or so years ago. I would say anybody hesitant on checking out the note of oud, I think this is a very, very good like entry level, even though it's not an entry level fragrance, but an entry level oud note to get yourself into it and kind of warm yourself up. Because this is a little bit spicy, it's extremely woody, it's not too barnyardy or funky where it kind of goes animalic. It still has this kind of crowd pleasing appeal to it. And on that day, I did do 6 sprays of Oud Wood. I believe I just did some shopping, ran some errands, etc. And I was just in the mood for this one since I haven't reached for it in quite some time, and still holds truth as being one of my favorite private blends, unless the new parfum takes that over. Friday was in the mid-30s and cloudy outside, and I went with a fragrance from Marc Antoine Barrois, which is not Ganymede, it is Ensilade. So this is a very unique kind of DNA. It's very rosy. It kind of has this green leather note, which is kind of weird to describe, as well as this very fresh kind of vegetable rhubarb note, especially in the opening, which is extremely watery. Now, I have a funny story while wearing this one. In the morning, I did only 3 sprays, believe it or not. Only 3 sprays. I went to the post office, right? Had to drop off some packages to ship out. And the post office woman was actually helping me out, of course, getting my packages shipped out. And at the end of helping me, there was another post worker woman that came through just as I was about to leave. And she asked the woman helping me if somebody sprayed Lysol. And when I heard that, my back was already turned and I was walking out of the door, and the woman didn't even respond. So I could imagine behind me, she was probably pointing at me, it was him, but didn't say anything, which I thought was funny. And I don't know, it's kind of weird that she said Lysol. Maybe it kind of has a Lysol vibe from that rhubarb possibly being extremely fresh. But saying a fragrance smell like Lysol is not a compliment at all. That's something you do not want to hear. And remember, I only did 3 sprays when I went to the post office. Imagine if I did either my 6 or my 10 sprays, she probably would have ran through, knocked the door down and said to somebody spray Lysol. Even though towards the evening I did do another 3 sprays just to reapply it. I did go out to dinner, met my mom, etc. Spent some time with family, things like that. But got no compliments with Ensilade besides that negative feedback. So wrapping the week off on Saturday, it was in the high 20s and snowy outside, so it's the coldest day of the week. And I pulled out a brand new fragrance in the collection, which got a ton of talk on that day for a certain reason. And it is Ralph Lauren's Ralph's Club. This is the original Eau de Parfum. Now, the reason I got this fragrance is because if any of you guys are in either the fragrance groups or follow me on Instagram, this fragrance was going for $30 at Walgreens. I actually got the 100 ml for $29. So everybody in the groups was picking it up. I did share on my Instagram that you can go get these for 30 bucks at Walgreens. So follow me on Instagram if you want to keep up to stuff like that. That is the place that I will post things like that. But back to Ralph's Club, this is actually a solid designer fragrance. Obviously, I have not been a big fan of the newer Ralph Lauren's fragrances. I gave Polo Red Parfum a terrible review when I got that bottle. This one though isn't that bad. It's extremely aromatic from like lavender, sage, a little bit spicy, a little bit powdery. And for $29 for 100 ml, you literally couldn't pass it up. But on Saturday, I did 6 sprays of this one, got no compliments, but the performance was pretty respectable. It projected actually pretty loud. Even better than the Parfum. I'm not too sure on the Elixir, which I haven't tried yet. But if you're watching this now, they might still have that sale going on at Walgreens for 30 bucks. So if you want, you go check it out and possibly get yourself a bottle. But that's going to do it for my weekly fragrance rotation. Per usual, leave a comment down below the fragrances you guys have been wearing throughout the week. You guys always pull out heavy hitters. And also leave a like, subscribe as well if you haven't already. And you already know, I'll see all of you back here in my next upload. Take care, everybody.